Greetings! Anton here with a short hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades devlog. Even though we did a video on Tuesday for the holiday, I figured I would also do another one today to give you a bit of a peek at progress that has been going on with the level, which is the other stuff that I did this week, other than adding tiny sausage grilling into the game for the 4th. Let's pop over to the Unity editor so I can show you folks some cool stuff. So why is my webcam video tiny on this display? Obs, you do strange things. Anyway, so in the version of the scene that you have access to in the game, which looks like this is the Institution preview. I have worked to fix all of the various little issues that you folks found in the past week. Things related to collision, lighting, culling especially, which was a huge issue. It should work far more reliably here. In addition to that, I added one more supply room to complete the set of 3 supply rooms that are going to be in our north quadrant of the level. And even though this is a tile set that doesn't belong to the north quadrant, I have added in a few of the vents, and I've put them in a very specific way. And if you're watching this video on your phone, just preface, this will look even darker than it looks in VR. But I've intentionally put in a section of vents here that has some top lighting in one section in these corners, and then no lighting whatsoever out at the ends here. And the primary question I want to know for those of you who do this, because VR headsets vary pretty tremendously in terms of their overall brightness and the way they handle what are called black levels and near blacks. So your colors that go from 0 up to about 30 out of 256 on RGB. And that ends up meaning that very dark areas in games can come across differently based on whether the HMD you're using has an LCD in it, has an OLED, etc. And so I've intentionally put this in here with very clear dark regions because I want to know how these feel to you folks in terms of how it is on your given HMD and just how you feel about having little sections of level where you are walking into an area like from here, where we've got a little bit of reflection here, but it's like mostly dark, and we can turn in one direction, see nothing, turn in another direction, and then see that there's a lit area at the end, but the area that we're actually standing in has almost no illumination. And so this is just a test before I start making final design decisions on the main level. I want to know how folks feel about having very short regions that don't necessarily have any falling hazards or anything, where the illumination almost completely drops out, because if there's going to be major complaints about that sort of thing, I want to know that before I end up authoring that into the main level. I know some of you have been like, give me an area where having a flashlight matters, but I also don't want to 100% require that, as there's take and hold characters that don't have flashlights. So it's that this is sort of a conceptual / technical test. Just tell me what you think about this region when you load up the level. Beyond that, if we actually go over to the other scene, this is my other working scene. This is not necessarily a finalized layout, but just to give you an idea of how big things are getting. The area that you just saw that is in your technical preview will end up being up here. This is the north quadrant. I'm going to end up spreading it out a little bit more so that occlusion culling is more efficient and things like that. But just to give you an idea of how that will relate to the rest of our level, this is our central transit station, which if you follow my posts on Twitter or the 18 other Twitters that now exist, this will be the sort of central fast transit hub area for the level with our brutalist minimalist trains. And then the area that I basically wrapped up the environment work for this past week has been the industrial section, which is the south quadrant. So I got several more supply rooms in that match the aesthetic. You can see this one here has some cool pipes in it, and actually has some falling hazards. It looks gray like this because we're viewing it in edit mode. This will actually be black when you are playing the game. The service hallways, which just every time I pop my camera into it, I just love that immediate feeling of warmth. These are colloquially known at this point as the hot dog tunnels for obvious reasons, and how that connects to our inclinator section, which I still need to get functional. Our giant water spillway down here. And here's the other hold room for this quadrant, which is a giant warehouse. If you're like, where do they store all the concrete that everything is made of here conceptually? Here is that. And just to give you an idea of, because it was pointed out in the Discord that some of these, when you don't actually have other small props or SOSIGs for scale, it can be a little ambiguous how large these are. But just to drag in a naked SOSIG here, that is the scale of one relative to this. So I'm really excited about this as a hold room, just because we've got 4 entrances on one side, elevation. The SOSIGs will actually be able to jump between a number of these areas and hop across. So when you come into this room, there actually might be like a guard SOSIG up here on the shelves. So you'll have to look really carefully. But I think this has a whole bunch of very interesting angles and various, complex topology to shoot through, which is something I'm trying to integrate into more of the holds. So that's in there. Ooh, this is another supply room that I just love the vibe of. It's got that eerie, almost spaceship-like. You can definitely tell some of the stuff, is conjuring very specific sort of Quake vibes. Some of it is very inspired by my recent time playing the System Shock remake. It's a pastiche of references. Bits of it are more Mirror's edgy, etc. Need to do a transit station there. So the industrial sector is done. The environment content for the center is done. The north quadrant is done. The west section, which is the sort of eerie or strange section, I have about 70% done. And then the east quadrant, which is going to be called power, is less done than the others. I have almost everything in blockout stages, but haven't advanced it to final geometry. So things are going super well in terms of progress. I'm speeding up with various parts of this now that I have done it a bunch of times and figuring out how to solve various design problems and getting just data back from performance testing. The new scene has been disgustingly useful. So let's see what else. But and had a great meeting with Joe, who is the composer. He made the original Take and Hold music. He made all the music in Return of the Rotwieners and has done a ton of sound design for the game. We're doing a new set of music that is bespoke for this level specifically, and I actually got to hear the first sort of preview of bits and pieces of it just yesterday. From him, now that he's sort of finding the textures for it. It is very Take and Hold. It feels congruent and fits alongside the original Take and Hold music, but feels like an evolution of it in so many ways, while also really communicating the same sort of vibes as this level. So I'm just tremendously excited. So well, hopefully this was an interesting little update for you folks. Those of you who are playing the alpha builds, please jump in and continue testing that little technical preview. The next time I do a big update for it, I will probably actually remove some pieces of it, or maybe I'll just append them onto the side as I just test other tile sets in rooms and just make sure I'm not running into technical problems with them. And many thanks to all of you who end up testing these things and giving me really, really useful feedback. It is invaluable. So hope you all have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you all next week. Peace.